You're looking for a fantastic new smartphone that can handle the most demanding games, last a full weekend on a single charge, and capture stunning photos of your friends or pets. Well, you're in luck. You absolutely don't have to spend over £1,000 on one of those snazzy new flagships these days, because some of the latest mid-range phones are impressively powerful and packed with some truly robust hardware, usually for hundreds of pounds less. I've reviewed dozens of these devices so far in 2026. Honestly, I can't even remember what sleep is anymore. So, here's my pick of the very best mid-range smartphones you can get right now. One of the first mid-range Android phones you should take a close look at, especially if you want one of the best cameras without spending too much, is Google's Pixel 10a. This is a compact delight at just 16 centimeters, 6.23 inches. Although it sports slimmer bezels than the previous Pixel 9, they could still accurately be described as quite noticeable. Google also chose to recycle much of the hardware from the previous Pixel 9a for the new 10a, including the Tensor G4 chipset that powers it. So, while gaming is certainly possible, you will find considerably more powerful phones in this lineup. But if that doesn't bother you, the display is excellent, providing a rich, crisp view of your TV shows or whatever, despite its more compact design. The battery life is also excellent, and recharging is quite fast. You get 4-5-watt wired charging support, allowing for a 50% recharge in roughly half an hour. You also have support for original Qi wireless charging. Google certainly doesn't disappoint on the support side either, offering 7 guaranteed OS updates and years of security patching. As always, one of the true highlights of this Google handset is its excellent camera technology. While the hardware isn't as advanced in the Pixel 10a compared to the Pixel 10 flagships, the top-notch image processing smarts mean you'll get good-looking photos at pretty much any time of day. And even if your photo ends up looking a bit subpar, Google has packed this device with all kinds of intelligent AI editing tools to rescue even imperfect snaps. My full Pixel 10a review, comparing it with the 9a, is live right now on Tech Unboxed. But honestly, if you can find that older 9a on a good deal, I would say grab that one instead. It's practically a Pixel 10a, and it still has 6 more years of OS updates and security patching to go. Moving on, one of my other favorite mid-rangers is the OnePlus Nord 4, an all-metal device that brings back fond memories of the quality phones HTC and LG used to produce. Sadly, this all-metal monster has now been replaced with the not quite as impressive Nord 5, although you may still find the Nord 4 available online for a good deal. The OnePlus Nord 5 may have reverted to a less premium, non-metal design, and also grown significantly in size to 3 centimeters, 6.83 inches. But you still get a smooth and highly satisfying Oxygen OS experience, packed with decent features and a balanced approach to AI. However, that iconic alert slider has been removed, replaced by the plus key, which isn't quite as customizable as you might hope. OnePlus is still offering 4 years of OS updates and 6 years of security patching, which, while not the best out there, is still quite respectable. That enormous AMOLED screen is gorgeous and responsive even with moist fingers, while the stereo speaker arrangement is also quite impressive. Unfortunately, the OnePlus Nord 5 can get quite warm under pressure, especially when gaming, despite having a dedicated cooling system, so you won't want to play Withering Waves for extended periods. The Nord 5 also suffers a battery technology downgrade compared to the old Nord 4, though mercifully, you'll still get a full day of pretty intense action from a single charge. And while the camera results aren't quite as reliable as Google's, this OnePlus Mobile can still produce attractive-looking photos, even in quite challenging conditions, complete with a fresh new 50-megapixel selfie camera that captures excellent detail. I also have to highlight the OnePlus Nord CE5, which is a bit cheaper but still excellent. This is a bit smaller than the Nord 5, and it loses some features like the Plus key, while also adding some great stuff like microSD memory card support. That AMOLED screen is still a stunner, if not quite as bright, although you do drop down to a basic mono speaker setup. While the Nord CE5 isn't quite as powerful as the Nord 5, it also doesn't get excessively hot when gaming. Battery life is brilliant, while the camera technology is fine for everyday use, even if it does go a bit crazy with the processing at times. You can find my full reviews of both these OnePlus phones, along with a complete comparison, right here on Tech Unboxed. Now, if you really fancy the OnePlus 15 but can't quite afford it, a slightly more affordably priced alternative is the OnePlus 15R. This only just about squeezes into the category of mid-range smartphones, costing from £629 at launch, but it's certainly well worth a look, especially for any gamers out there. This reboot of the OnePlus 15 flagship has a few features like wireless charging stripped out to lower the price. The main victim here is the camera setup, which loses the telephoto lens and makes do with a more basic ultra-wide shooter. If you're looking for top-tier optics, I'd say probably look elsewhere. However, the OnePlus 15R is powered by Qualcomm's Snapdragon 8 Gen 5, which may not quite be elite, but it is still very powerful, breezing through withering waves on maxed-out graphics settings with ease. Plus, you get the same excellent gaming mode, and yet another stunning 165Hz display. The battery life is just as fantastic on the OnePlus 15R as it is on that flagship. In fact, you get a slightly bigger cell at 7,400 mAh. It's good enough to keep you going all weekend long, and it's all topped off with excellent Oxygen OS software, complete with a few years of guaranteed updates, and of course, those standard AI features. Perhaps you've been tempted to spend a large sum of money on Samsung's fresh new Galaxy S26 flagship phone, or one of its even bigger, pricier siblings. Well, if that's the case, maybe keep your wallet in your pocket and check out the cheaper Galaxy A56 instead. This capable mid-range mobile boasts a similar water-resistant design to the S26 flagship, plus a similar One UI experience and an impressive 6 full years of software support. Otherwise, some of those specs have been adjusted to reach a more accessible price. For example, while the Exynos chipset can handle some gaming, more demanding titles like Withering Waves can experience some stuttering. That 17 centimeters, 7 inches. 120 Hz Super AMOLED display has once again grown compared to the previous model, and it's ever so slightly brighter, while the storage has actually doubled. Battery life is excellent. In fact, I actually found it was slightly better on the whole than the Galaxy S26 flagship, certainly the Exynos version available in the UK. Recharging it isn't as frustratingly slow as it was with previous generations. The camera technology is, on the whole, quite dependable. So, Samsung fans should find the Galaxy A56 a satisfying and more affordable alternative. Otherwise, for a little bit less cash, there's always Samsung's Galaxy A36. This is another water-resistant phone with a 120 Hz AMOLED screen, stereo speakers, and some rather solid optics for a respectable price point. Battery life is brilliant, providing stress-free all-day use, although, yes, once again, the performance is a bit shaky. As with the A56, you've got a full 6 years of software support, but bear in mind, however, that this Galaxy A series duo will soon be replaced with the Galaxy A57 and A37. These mid-range mobiles just keep on launching, so stay tuned for more on those from Tech Unboxed. And if you are tempted by Samsung's Galaxy S25 FE or Fan Edition, I'd say probably don't bother unless you see it on a significant discount. There are far better options available at a similar price. Nothing is another dependable source of quality mid-range phones. Their latest duo, the Phone 4a and Phone 4a Pro, are two excellent devices, as expected. You'll find a very different design for this generation, with the usual transparent design elements for the regular 4a being swapped out for a full metal construction for the Pro model. Sadly, the glyph lighting from previous generations has also been replaced with a simple glyph bar on the Nothing Phone 4a, while the Pro model sports a more budget-friendly reboot of the glyph matrix last seen on the flagship Nothing Phone 3. This allows for a more customizable and visual experience on the Nothing Phone 4a Pro, but in both cases, the glyph features can be used as a versatile notification light, countdown timer, and more. Flip these phones over, and the other end is just as delightful, serving up a vibrant OLED display. The stereo speaker setup is certainly decent enough for enjoying a spot of Netflix, or the satisfying sound of defeating enemies in your favorite games with an anime character. Speaking of which, this pair of mid-range mobiles can happily handle even more demanding games like Withering Waves, although it's certainly a smoother experience on the Pro. Nothing OS is as lovely as always, packed with the standard AI features, of course. If you go for the Pro model, you'll also enjoy the convenience of eSIM. I'm also impressed by Nothing's flexible camera setup. Even the cheaper Nothing Phone 4 boasts a dedicated telephoto shooter, which is quite the rarity at this price point. I have to say, as much as I love the Pro model, I would recommend the regular Nothing Phone 4a for most people. It should more than satisfy. Or if you want to go super cheap, there's always Nothing's CMF Phone 2 Pro, which again packs some pretty decent specs for just £200. I've also included it in my roundup of the best budget smartphones right now. And of course, my full 4a and 4a Pro reviews are also live. Another manufacturer known for offering powerful hardware at an affordable price is Xiaomi. One of its latest mid-range mobiles, which is certainly worth a gander, is the Redmi Note 15 Pro Plus 5G. A somewhat unwieldy name and perhaps not as groundbreaking as some previous generations, but it still offers decent technology. This durable slab features Victus 2 Gorilla Glass and IP68 dust and water resistance, which is great news if you're a bit prone to dropping your phone. Of course, not everyone will enjoy Xiaomi's HyperOS experience, which can come with pre-installed bloatware and be occasionally buggy. While Xiaomi is guaranteeing 6 years of security patching and 4 OS updates, which sounds pretty generous for a mid-ranger, unfortunately, one of those 4 OS updates is primarily used to bring the phone up to modern standards, with HyperOS 3 and Android 16. The huge 6,500 mAh battery is quite a bit bigger compared to the previous generation, and it means that you shouldn't be running out of juice over a weekend unless you push it to its limits. You've also got 100-watt wired charging support, making it one of the fastest in this roundup. Apart from that, it's just slight upgrades for the specs across the board compared to the previous Note 14 Pro Plus, from the slightly bigger AMOLED screen to the slightly more capable Snapdragon 7S Gen 4. And you once again have a 200-megapixel main shooter that is decent enough for everyday snapping, but it can occasionally produce soft-looking photos. For a bit less money, you can always grab the Redmi Note 15 Pro 5G. This may lose some of those plus points, but it's still a mid-range gem. It's just as water-resistant as the Pro Plus with that lovely Victus 2 protection, complete with the same excellent display and stereo speaker setup. You get basically the same 200-megapixel camera hardware integrated into the rear as well, so photo and video results are very similar. You've actually got an ever so slightly bigger battery stuffed into the regular Pro versus the Pro Plus, 6,580 mAh, I believe it is, although it does charge up a bit slower thanks to the 4-5 watt charging support. Pretty much the only other change is the chipset, which has been swapped out for the MediaTek 7400 Ultra. This isn't quite as dependable when playing on chunky open-world behemoths like Withering Waves, but it's still decent enough. And if you fancy diving deeper into comparisons, I've compared the Redmi Note 15 Pro Plus 5G with the Pro and the vanilla Note 15, so check out that review. To make things even more complicated, there is Poco, which is a Xiaomi sub-brand that basically takes Xiaomi smartphones launched only in China, then reskins and relaunches them to a global audience. Their best mid-range effort right now is the stunningly good value Poco X8 Pro Max. This large device boasts some slick design, including distinctive disco rings, as well as an incredibly bright AMOLED display. The stereo speakers can be significantly boosted, while the Dimensity 9500S processor can handle absolutely anything you throw at it, helped along by a dependable cooling system. But even more impressive is the almighty 8,500 mAh capacity battery, one of the biggest I've seen stuffed into any smartphone in 2026. That can easily keep you going a full long weekend unless you use it heavily. And also means the Poco X8 Pro Max can be happily used as a makeshift power pack when you're on the move. In fact, on that hardware front, it's perhaps the most enticing mid-ranger in this roundup, even though the camera doesn't sport a telephoto shooter. But you do once again have to contend with that divisive HyperOS launcher, similar to other Xiaomi phones. For a bit less cash, you can always grab yourself the Poco X8 Pro instead. It's not as max in terms of battery size, features more budget-friendly optics, and has slightly less raw power. But hey, it's also a bit more compact, costs less money, and comes in a rather lovely Iron Man edition if you happen to have an affection for Tony Stark. You've also got the Poco F8 Pro, which doesn't quite impress me as much as the Poco X8 Pro Max. The performance is smashing thanks to the Snapdragon 8 Elite chipset, although I have found that this phone gets a bit warm under pressure. Besides that power boost and the telephoto camera, it's actually pretty similar to the Poco X8 Pro. Next up, the Honor 400 Lite. An absolutely impressive device with a vibrant AMOLED screen, a large battery, and a selfie camera that's ideal for great social media photos. Plus, a camera button that's surprisingly more effective than on the iPhone 16 Pro, despite the fact that Apple's flagship costs 4 times as much. Honor appears to have taken quite a lot of inspiration from Apple, unfortunately. For one, matching that boxy design, although at least the 400 Lite packs in some AI tools that are actually useful. You've also got double the storage of a regular iPhone, while the crisp and punchy 17 centimeters, 6-7 inches screen features a similar display notch up top. Even the camera results are iPhone-like, with oversaturated photos and boosted colors. As for the performance, sadly, more demanding games do struggle, but optimized apps like PUBG and Call of Duty fare just fine. So, if you fancy an iPhone rivaling device for a fraction of the price, definitely check it out. Also, don't sleep on the excellent Honor Magic 8 Lite, which is significantly cheaper than its Pro sibling. It's also a lot less chunky, and it's very durable, too. The Honor Magic 8 Lite is apparently constructed from ultra-tough tempered glass and features the impressive Ultra Bounce anti-drop technology. The Ultra Bounce name sounds impressive, and while it won't magically spring back into your hand if dropped, it's designed for exceptional durability. It can survive drops from up to 5 meters in height and is also IP68 and IP69, dust, water, and splash resistant, with a screen that stays relatively responsive when it is moist. Speaking of that screen, it is large, sharp, and vibrant, great stuff for your movies and games and whatnot. Performance is rather limited with a Snapdragon 6 Gen 4 inches charge, but the Honor Magic 8 Lite can still cope with fairly demanding games like Withering Waves. Just don't expect a silky smooth frame rate. You're certainly better off with optimized titles like PUBG. Battery life is another absolute highlight of this mid-range magic, courtesy of the 7,500 mAh silicon carbon cell. This is why the Magic 8 Lite can comfortably survive a full weekend on a single charge, complete with 6-watt fast charging support when that juice is finally drained. Unfortunately, it's not all good news. The camera arrangement hasn't really been upgraded for this generation, so it is merely okay, while Magic OS can sometimes feel a bit cumbersome. Now, if you're after a dedicated gaming smartphone for a mid-range price, point your eyeballs at the Red Magic 11 Air. This is a surprisingly affordable powerhouse, boasting some serious specs that won't completely drain your savings. You get plenty of great gaming tools and features packed in there, including responsive shoulder buttons and a seriously stacked gaming toolbar to give you a bit of a leg up in PUBG. While that slightly older Snapdragon chipset can still cope admirably with even the toughest memory-guzzling titles out there like Withering Waves. And yes, the entertaining smartphone assistant Mora is back in action, albeit now with a slightly artificial AI voice. And if you can actually find it available online somewhere, I would also happily recommend the Vivo V70, especially for any camera fans, as you've got some upgraded Zeiss-branded optics that pump out gorgeous, natural-looking photos. You even have a telephoto shooter, which is perfect for portrait snaps. Vivo hasn't changed many of the other specs compared to the older V60, but that's not really a bad thing because that 6,500 mAh battery should still satisfy the most demanding of users. You get that same Snapdragon 7 Gen 4 chipset, which can handle everyday life and even quite hardcore games like Withering Waves, although I have found this phone does get a bit warm under pressure. But that is one of the few flaws of the Vivo V70. That, and the fact that it might be challenging to find one readily available in the UK. You'll likely need to search online to have one imported. Oh, and you might at some point happen to find yourself tempted by the iPhone 17e, Apple's most affordable handset, although it is still more expensive than pretty much every single Android that I've listed in this mid-range roundup. Tech Unboxed strongly advises against that idea. The battery life is decent, and the performance is fine, but the outdated 60 Hz screen makes the experience feel sluggish, while that basic camera is frankly an embarrassment compared to the Pixels, Vivos, Nothings, and others of the world. So, do yourself a favor and avoid it. And there you have it, everyone. That is my pick of the very best mid-range smartphones you can get right now in 2026. Of course, there are literally dozens and dozens of mid-range phones launching every week, it feels like. And as always, I've only recommended smartphones that I've personally tested and reviewed. So, if I've missed out on your own personal favorite mid-range mobile, definitely let me know why my opinion differs. And let me know what you would have chosen in the comments below. As I say, full reviews and everything are live right now on Tech Unboxed for all these phones, if any of them have piqued your interest. If you found this helpful, please subscribe and hit that notification bell for more tech insights. Have a wonderful rest of your week.